Welcome back, guys. I want to talk to you today about an article that I got from online. It talks about, I'm sure you've probably heard in the news that the Potter's House of Denver, they're shutting their doors. It's TD Jakes mega church that I think his son-in-law and his daughter runs. So we know, guys, that I always talk about this, that churches are closing their doors. They're losing membership. And this was happening before the pandemic. And what happened is that the pandemic is exposing a lot of these churches. And it's just a testament of what's the greater truth of what's going on. Number one, the flock is not being fed from the pastor. So people are abandoning these churches because they're not receiving any truth. They still receiving milk, not receiving meat from these pastors. They're receiving a false doctrine, and people is starting to having their eyes open and have the delusion removed from their lives. So what I'll do is I want to kind of take some pull quotes from this article. And it's a bigger issue that's going on besides that. And I think what is happening is that Yah is separating the wheat from the tare. And the bigger picture in the whole deal is that the younger generation is falling away. So as believers, are we going to hold fast to our faith? And that's why when you're a believer in this faith, it's important that we're not relying on man to teach our children the word. And then that what was happening in the churches is that we're relying the pastor to feed us the word instead of the nuclear family, the father, the mother, the parents teaching their children the word, which is how it's supposed to be, which is how they did in the Bible. But we'll get into that. Let me take a couple of quotes from this article that I found interesting. And this is from the Christian Post. It reads, ravaged by the COVID-19 pandemic and declining donations, the Potter's House of Denver has decided to sell its 12.2 million 137,000 square foot megachurch in Arapahoe County, Colorado, and go completely virtual. Pastor Torrey Roberts has revealed. So you see, guys, they're going to sell this $12 million building because they're not receiving enough donations to keep the building running. Roberts, he continues, who leads the multicultural church alongside his wife, Sarah Jakes Roberts, made the announcement in an interview with the Denver Post published on Monday. Guys, this was published January 6th. They said COVID-19 forced every church in America to rethink how to best serve their parishioners and broader community. Roberts told the publication, due to the inability to gather and the economic instability of the pandemic, our church, like many other churches in the nation, experienced declining donations. So you see, guys, this is all Yah's doing. He's shuttering these churches because he wants people to discover his truth, draw closer to him. Don't go to somebody else's well to receive the truth. Come directly to me to receive this truth. So a lot of people, what they're doing now is that they're starting to learn Yah's truth. They're starting to seek Yah on their own. A lot of people are coming out of the Christian church because, again, and the Christian church, they don't have anyone to blame but themselves because they went along with the fear tactics of the pandemic and all of that. And I'm not talking against the pandemic or whatever. Believe what you want about it, but they were along pushing the fear on folks, and people were fearing the pandemic more than they were fearing Yah. Instead of people should fear Yah instead of fearing what the world is promoting, instead of fearing the pandemic. They put their faith in man and not in Yah, which is not what he wants us to do. They continue, instead of trying to do upkeep on an old building that needed significant repairs, which they have occupied for more than a decade. So they've had this church for over a decade. Pastor Roberts explained that selling the property and going fully virtual with their services made the most sense. He concluded, we decided that the best way forward would be to sell the property, continue our online offering that had proven a successful alternative, and maintain our hands-on community outreach operations, which includes our food bank that feeds thousands of families per year, he said. And guys, this has happened across the country. It's not only happening to the Potter's House. They're just the most recent example. The Potter's House in Denver. The article also states that many churches nationwide are being forced to make the difficult choice of abandoning their buildings due to dwindling attendance, sometimes without the prospect of a virtual alternative. For example, on Christmas Eve, members of the 220-year-old, 15,000 square foot First Presbyterian Church of Bellefonte in Pennsylvania had their final service and shuttered their church after the pandemic because they reduced their in-person attendance to 12. Prior to the pandemic, membership had already dropped to 40 from its heyday when hundreds used to gather in the building for worship. Wow, guys, you see this? This church, they only had 12 people in attendance. Now, notice that since the pandemic is sort of winding down, these churches still can't get people to come back. Because, again, like I just said, they kind of did this to themselves. Put this fear on people, having people panic and scared, putting their trust in the media of what's going on, instead of putting their trust in the Most High, not separating themselves, not telling people to hold fast to Yah's word and his promises. So that's why people are not going back. It's like you telling someone, you're inviting someone into your house, and then you're telling them you have a dog, but you're telling them that your dog won't bite. And you invite them in your home, and guess what? Your dog bites. And you've heard this before. People saying, "Our dog won't bite. He's so nice. He won't do you anything." But then the dog ends up biting you. But guess what? Do you think that person is gonna? You invite them back to their house. You think they're gonna come in this time, even though they've seen what your dog can do? You think they're going to be excited to come back to your house? No. So it's the same thing what these churches did. They made people fearful of the pandemic, of what's going on in the surroundings across the country, and made people scared, made people fearful. And now you're telling people, yeah, it's okay to come out now, come back. The people are still fearful. So yeah, it serves you right to keep pushing the agenda. And that's why people aren't returning back to your churches. So the Christian churches don't have anyone to blame but themselves. They're blaming themselves. And this is the money part of the article that I really want to touch on. It talks about the falling away of the younger generation away from the church. The article continues. A Lifeway research survey of 1,000 Protestant pastors conducted September 1st through the 29th shows that even though 98% of all Protestant churches are now open for in-person worship services, nearly matching pre-pandemic levels, congregants have been slow to return to the pews. Again, my dog won't bite. People are still in fear. Compared to figures from January 2020, the survey showed that as of August, 13% of churches were attracting less than 50% of their pre-COVID attendance. You hear that, guys? Less than 50%. Especially for us in the black community, we're more comfortable um, leaving the church because it shows in the article that data shows that black churchgoers have adapted so well to online church amid the pandemic that some 41% of them now favor a hybrid model of in-person and online services, even after COVID-19 is no longer deemed a threat. Just 7% say they would rather their church services remain digital going forward. David Kinnaman, president of the California-based evangelical Christian polling firm, the Barna Group, and Barna director of Insights, Mark Matlock, suggested in 2020 that the pandemic could result in the loss of faith for the next generation. So that's what I'm talking about, guys. Will your children continue the faith? Will the next generation continue the faith of Yah? And that's what we can't let happen. What's happening in the Christian church, we can't let that happen amongst us. The article continues. Citing earlier research, they showed that a majority of young people who grew up in the church would likely either walk away from their faith or from the church when they become young adults. They made their comments during a discussion about the impact of the pandemic on Christians aged 18 through 29. They quote they quote Kinnaman as saying, "I think it will. I actually think we're going to see an increasing number of people who've lost connectedness with their faith community, with their usual rhythms and practices. We're going to actually see an increasing number in the years to come, and the long-term impact is even." And I'll finish with this last quote from the article. It says some 22% of young people are no longer Christian, and 30% are classified as nomads because they still believe in Yah, or God, they say, but aren't connected to a church. Another 38% are considered habitual churchgoers, but have loose ties to God, which we call Yah. Guys, and that's what I want to talk about in this article, being that we're believers in the truth, that we can't go the ways of the Christian and how the Christian church is falling away. And as more people are falling away from the churches, they're going to come into the knowledge of the truth because they're going to start searching online, seeking new information, and Yah's going to draw them nearer to Him. And with that said, I think like I said, he's separating the wheat from the chaff. Are we going to fall away like the Christians are? Are we going to let our children go for another generation without knowing who Yah is? We're not supposed to do that. Proverbs 22:6 says, "Train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it." So our children can't be how we were like when we were in the Christian church, depending on the pastor to feed us. No, it starts at home. If you guys look into the New Testament, I'll show you that all they did church in the home. They didn't go to a church building. They were being fed in homes. And that's what we have to return back to, teaching our children in our homes the word of Yah. John verses 1 through 4 says, "I have no greater joy than to hear that my children are walking in the truth." Yah wants our children to walk in the truth. We can't let them fall away. Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 29. "Oh, that their hearts would be inclined to fear me and keep all my commands always, so that it might go well with them and their children forever." Must teach our children Yah's laws and commands, so that it will go well with them forever. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 6 and 7. "These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Teach them to your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up." Yah wants to teach our children day and night, teach his laws and commands. And guys, we know this, psychology teaches this, and the most impact a person could have on a child, the most learning that they do is in the home. They get it from their parents. That's the person who has the most influence, and that's how Yah established it. He wanted the father to be the image of Yah in the home. So that's why, to all my men, we have to stay in the home, teaching our kids, keeping our families intact, keeping the nuclear family together, because that's our commandment. He commands it in his word that the parents, they're supposed to teach their children Yah's laws and commandments. So, guys, I just want to talk to you briefly about this subject, how the churches are declining, they're shutting their doors, and a lot of people are falling away, and it's looking bad for the next generation of Christians. But I think, and which is a good thing, because I think when more people fall away from Christianity, they're going to discover Yah's truth, and they're going to get fed real milk, and they're going to get fed the real meat and get off of the milk. They're going to discover Yah's truth, learn his mysteries, and have a closer, more personal relationship with him as they dive into the word for themselves and discover Yah's truth.